Similar to the epoch robot experiment and the little loop experiment, the agent has a set of primitive interactions that correspond to 6 possible experiments. Try to step forward, turn left, turn right, feel by touching to the left, feel by touching to the front, feel by touching to the right. Additionally, the agent can distinguish between different kinds of feeling to the front, which correspond to feeling different kinds of objects in the environment. So there are these 2 additional interactions represented by these cyan and light green symbols. Notably, however, these objects feel the same when the agent feels them to the side, which adds a little difficulty to differentiate them. Now, the agent can also sense the position in space where an interaction is enacted. So, at time t, in addition to receiving the enacted interaction et, the agent receives its position in space, called sigma t. The agent also receives the spatial displacement in space generated by the enaction of et, called tau t. Sigma and tau are expressed in the agent's egocentric referential. So, tau corresponds to the displacement of the environment relative to the agent, that is, the opposite of the displacement of the agent in the environment. So interactions to the front come with a sigma equals to 1, 0, whether it's feeling to the front or bumping or stepping forward. To the left, sigma is 0, 1, and to the right, sigma is 0, minus 1. The turn interactions generate a tau corresponding to a rotation of pi over 2 or minus pi over 2. And the step forward interaction generates a tau corresponding to a translation of minus 1 unit along the x-axis. So sigma and tau represent additional sensory data available to the agent, as if it had its own body schema and vestibular system that provided spatial information. A robot could infer tau from accelerometer data. Note that our algorithm does not assume that sigma and tau are precise. It only uses spatial data on the short term to detect spatial overlap of interactions, but not to construct a map of the environment. A robot would nonetheless have to calibrate telemeter and accelerometer data, and we are not yet sure how to do that. But let's see what happens with this configuration. So here we have the agent in the little loop as before. The only difference is that there is this cyan wall here that affords different interactions by feeling through touching. So as before, the agent picks random interactions at the beginning. And here you can see the agent's spatial memory, where interactions that are enacted are placed, and when the agent moves, spatial memory is updated to keep track of where interactions were enacted. And here you have the sequential trace as before, with touch in front, step forward, touch in front. This is touch right, this is touch left, this is bump. And here you have the valences of interactions. So it's as before, it doesn't like bumping, but it likes moving forward. And here you can see the bundle construction, that is the association of interactions when they overlap in space. So here it has learned that touching empty in front overlaps with moving forward when it moves forward the next time. And here it has learned that touching a wall in front overlaps with bumping. So it means that they are afforded by the same objects. And here it constructs a bundle for that corresponds to an empty cell that is characterized by moving forward, touching front empty, touching left empty, touching right empty. Okay, so let me play it. Here we see again the sequential learning with the sequence touch empty move forward as before, that is enacted for the first time here, as we can see in this little bar graph that raises the second level. Here we can see that it associates the interaction touch to the right, then it turned and then bumped, so it knows that a wall affords both the interaction touch, right, wall, and bump. And here it doesn't know yet to recognize these cyan walls, so it had to touch a cyan wall and try to move forward, and it discovers that these cyan walls afford bumping also. So now it has constructed this association. So now it knows not to move forward into these cyan walls. So it learns even higher sequence of interactions here. Okay, and now we introduce those flowers here. So it's a new kind of object. So here it touches this flower with this special interaction, and here it associates that touching a flower to the front is associated with touching empty to the left. In fact, the flower object affords those two different interactions, and they are associated here. And now it has learned that those flowers afforded the interaction step forward, similar to empty cells. So it can move through these flowers without hesitation anymore. So this video demonstrates that this agent learns both basic sequential regularities and spatial regularities. It learns to use sequences of feeling interactions to avoid bumping into walls and turning to the right direction, and it learns to recognize different categories of objects, namely empty cells, dark green walls, cyan walls, and flowers. And it adjusts its behavior according to the objects it is interacting with.